The second Vitruvius legendary event is coming up next, and so today we'll take a look at how to make sure you don't miss out on this Ad Mech Tech Priest Dominus. Planning for a legendary event always begins about a month before they actually start, and with the Commander Shadowsun legendary event just finished, we should already be turning our attention to the next opportunity to get the Ad Mech Vitruvius. If you've been following my recent plans for legendary events, you'll already be working on some of the teams that help you to get through this one, but let's deep dive into it and see what we can do. So as always with my legendary events, the strategy for these is to sit down with my current roster, my Google Planner sheets that are linked in the video description below, and just play around with it to see how I can bring my team to the next level. What does next level mean? That depends on where you are right now. To open a legendary event character, realistically you're going to need around 6 or 7 gold characters, and of course the more the better. So the first level to reach is definitely getting some of the best characters in the game leveled up to gold 1. After that, I always focus on bringing all my teams to silver 1 with a couple of gold 1 characters in each one. Currently, I'm at the next stage where I'm bringing all my characters up to gold 2 and further so that I can add one more star to my legendary characters. But finally, the top players are all working to complete every single battle in a legendary event, but that requires a crazy amount of Diamond 2 or Diamond 3 characters at present. So let's stick with looking at what characters are useful to level for the Vitruvius event, and you can work out yourselves which of these levels you're at. Just before we dive into the Vitruvius planning, I wanted to show the results from the Shadowsun event. Shadowsun was one of the first characters I started building teams out for, and this is where I got to. In the alpha track, I didn't have quite enough beef to get through the big target battle, but everything else was completed. Similarly, in the beta track, the difficulty of the Astra Militarum battle really shocked me, as I had a few gold 2 characters and Thaddeus a diamond 1, but seems like I needed more diamond characters there. And it was a similar story for the Gamma track, where my Black Legion team wasn't strong enough with only gold 2 characters. The final struggle was the range team, but that was another really hard battle as you're fighting lots of Bellator and Certus-like characters. Overall though, I'm fairly happy and it took me to 4 stars easily, and just about 5 stars. So a seriously good effort, but also a good lesson for us all. If you want 5 stars, you pretty much need all your tracks completed up to stage 11, but for that you're going to need some diamond characters in most teams. And in the meantime, if you want to earn some free blackstone to help you on your way, you can use my refer a friend code in-game today to get 100 free blackstone. Just note you can only use one refer a friend code, so make sure you make the most of it. But let's turn our attention back to Vitruvius and see what needs to be done there. Let's begin with the alpha track. We can't take any Necrons, and the battles are as follows. No Psychic for 40 points, Ranged for 75 points, Max 1 Hit for 120 points, Power for 105 points, and no Resilient for 35 points. And so there are a bunch of strategies here in order to maximize your token usage or success in this track, and we're going to go through them one at a time. Firstly, let's start with what is the best team to use for 1 token? Well, if you have a certain set of characters, you can do the no Psychers, all ranged, power, and no resilient battles with just 1 token. That's a whopping 255 points. The characters you can use are 5 from the following 6. Brother Butchered, High Marshal Helbrecht, Morgan Ra, Morven Vale, Toth, and Volk. But obviously there are some issues here with this collection of characters. The main issue is that it's got 3 legendary characters in it, Helbrecht, Morgan Ra, and Morven Vale. So that is a pretty big hurdle to climb over. However, if you can pull these 5 together, you will always have a decent go at it. As there's no healer in the group, if you've got them at gold 1, you'll probably get to around stage 6. If you've got to gold 2, maybe stage 7 or 8, but you'll really need to overlevel them to get further than this. Either way, Volk is the character that scores the second most points in the current legendary events, and we know from the Shadowsun event just how important he is. So it's always going to be a worthwhile investment. Toth is another character that's just a great one to have in your team, and with the new Gold Wars starting recently, he also doubles as an amazing defender in that mode too. Finally, Morven Vale is currently the highest scoring Imperial in legendary events, so another great addition to have. If that is impossible for you, there are lots of different routes you can go, but rather than going through every single combination, let me just talk about some of the more important ones. For the 195 points, you can do the Incisus route. This has you doing the no Psychic, Max 1 Hit, and no Resilient battles. Even though this character is often mocked, I found him really useful in legendary events, and as healers are also super useful in Guild Wars, I don't think it's worth sleeping on Incisus right now. Anyway, for 195 points, he can be paired with 5 of the following: Azrael, Calandis, Certus, Sarquel, Swordbrother Godswill, or Tangida. From that list, Tangida is obviously a mechanical character, so although he can't be healed by Incisus, he can fill the battlefield with spawns, which really helps. Godswill and Azrael have a bit of health to be a front line, while the rest can overwatch enemies to death if you can get them into a corner. This will bring you pretty far through it. Going down the list a bit further, we can also use a token to do the ranged and power battles for 180 points, and you get quite a selection here. You can choose from Abaddon, Azrael, Bruchard, Yarrick, Helbrecht, Moggenra, Morvenvale, Toth, Typhus, and Volt. So plenty of options to get tons of points from. One last thing to mention here is that there is an Isabella Battle Ball that you can use to bring you all the way to stage 12. But it's only for no psychic and no resilient battles that are worth 75 points. But of course, completing that track also gets you a fair few points. You can pick Bellator, Burchard, Marneus Calgar, and then you could throw in Toth, Incisus, or Tyrant Guard, just to make sure. I'm really loving the Incisus Isabella mix in this team, and all of this will get you off to a really great start. Moving on to the beta track, we can't take any chaos, and the battles are as follows. Max 2 hits, 75 points, Piercing, 115 points, Bolter, 105 points, No Infiltrate, 30 points, and no summons, 50 points. So there are a few important things that I can see here. In the last two battles, no infiltrate and no summons, they can be done with most of the characters in the game that's allowed. So essentially I look at that as 80 free points and I just don't bother prioritizing summons. There's a bolter battle and Imperials are allowed, which means Isabella and her battle ball are in my mind. And finally, with Imperials being allowed here and a piercing battle, I'll instantly be looking to see how much work Incisus can do, and he definitely shines here again. So he's really someone you may want to consider leveling for this event. But let's see how all this comes together. I would split this up into two parts. Max 2 hits and piercing for 190 points, and then bolter and no summons for 155 points. You can put the infiltrate into either category as you prefer. I'll just presume you won't bother taking any infiltrate characters, but it's up to you. For the max 2 hits and piercing teams, this is led by Incisus and has the following options: Calandis, Eldrion, Shosil, and Tyrant Guard. And this tactic just sees you get as many Shosil drones out as possible and rotate in your front line. Of course, in later stages this gets very difficult as the drones get one shot, but with gold 1 characters and a decent passive and Tyrant Guard, you can hold off until stage 6 pretty easily. Speaking of Tyrant Guard here, if you bring him up to Legendary and level his passive to 36 or higher, his damage reduction will be 33%, which is huge. So again, it's really worth leveling this beast. For the remaining battles, a simple Isabella Battle Ball will suffice. Any of the following characters will work well: Bellator, Butchard, Calgar, and that's already pretty much enough. But just to throw someone else in there to round the team off, you can have Azrael, Certus, Yarrick, Elbrecht, Morvenval, or Rosita. Without Isabella, you'll need to overlevel your troops, and you really should have Incisus up to gold 2, so at least he can fill in that slot as best he can. But with Incisus and Isabella, you should be really high up the track. Moving on to the Gamma track sees a ban on Imperials. The battles are no flying for 60 points, no death guard for 35 points, power for 125 points, no psyker for 40 points, and max 2 hits for 110 points. And again, there are a bunch of different ways to tackle this. Firstly, I want you to maximize token usage. So you probably want to pick a team led by either Nauseous Rotbone, or if you don't have him, then by Abaddon. This team can cover all the battles except for the max 2 hits, and this is an awesome at 260 points. So ideally, pick Rotbone and Abaddon, and then any of the following to round out your team: Angrax, Onshi, Maladis, Moggenra, Toth, and Volt. And if you don't have Rotbone, you'll of course need to overlevel your team here, and maybe that won't be good enough for you to make this work. So there is an alternative path. Again, for 1 token, you can complete the max 2 hits battle, no death guard, no psyker, and no flying battles for 250 points. But this is a lot more difficult because this is a team led by Tyrant Guard and comprised of the following: Calandis, Darkstrider, Makotep, and Shosil. Now this is not very tanky at all, so I'm not sure how you would be able to handle the later levels in this track without it being very overleveled, but maybe Makotep could be a bit of a frontman for the group. But if that doesn't work, then you can fight in smaller groups of battles with a bunch of other characters, but I'll leave you to puzzle out what's best for your own team there. And so, as always, this is an overwhelming amount of data. Let's summarize it into a good plan for you to focus on in the next month that will allow you to maximize your points and hopefully unlock Vitruvius. This depends on your level, and again, you'll probably need 6 or 7 of these at Gold 1, as well as having Isabella and Rodbone, but don't despair if you don't. Every upgrade that you put into these characters will be useful in the future, and will move you one step closer to Vitruvius, because he still has his final legendary event to come after this one. Personally, I'd start with the healers and tanks. In sizes, Isabella, Nauseous Rotbone, and Tyrant Guard as the highest priority to be leveling. Next, I would then work on the characters that can gain the most points: Shosil, Calandus, and Azrael. Finally, I'd pick some of the characters to push up a bit. All of these are in the top 20 of legendary event scoring, so all of them are absolutely worth it. Onshi, Volk, Morgan Ra, Abaddon, Angrax, Maladis, Toth, Morven Val. And so that's still a lot of characters to focus on, and maybe even that last list is still too overwhelming for you. And if that's the case, just pick 3 or 4 of those characters that you think you'd like to play and at least get them leveled to Gold 1. All the best with the event when it comes round, and let me know if this helped you to get Vitruvius.